I stand near the edge of the restaurant's private dining room, the clinking of glasses almost drowning out the forced smile plastered on my face. My sister Maya is the center of attention as always. Tonight, it's celebrating her promotion. She tears into a large, elegantly wrapped box, revealing a set of keys. She gasps dramatically, covering her mouth. No way! Dad beams, nodding toward the window where a brand new, gleaming white Lexus RX sits with an absurdly large red bow on the hood. Mom clasps her hands together, radiating pride. Then Dad turns to me, holding out a much smaller, brightly colored box. And something for our future doctor, he announces. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, is a cheap plastic piggy bank shaped like a cartoon stethoscope. For your future, he says. It has $20 inside. I force a smile, the plastic stethoscope piggy bank feeling heavier than it should in my hand. $20 for my future. The words echo Gregory's dismissive tone. Around me, the party swirls, a blur of congratulations for Maya. She's already outside posing for photos with the Lexus, the red bow, almost as big as her ego. Patricia follows her phone held high, documenting every perfect angle. It's always been like this. I flash back to my high school graduation. Top 10% a scholarship offer to Vanderbilt for biomedical research. We celebrated with pizza at home because Maya had a regional cheerleading competition the next day, and Mom said they needed to focus on supporting her. When Maya graduated college 3 years later, with decent grades but no honors, mind you, they rented out half this restaurant, 50 guests, a custom cake. Gregory gave a speech about her limitless potential. Patricia finds me lingering by the dessert table. Isn't it wonderful, Clara? She gushes, eyes sparkling. Maya's worked so hard. Pharmaceutical sales is such a demanding field, but so rewarding, don't you think? I nod, knowing what's coming. All that time in the lab you do, honey, she continues, patting my arm. It's admirable, of course. But is it really leading anywhere real-world success like Maya's? That's what truly matters. Admirable, her code word for a respectable but ultimately unprofitable hobby. Maya sweeps back in, jingling the Lexus key. Oh my God, Clara, you have to come for a ride later. It drives like a dream. She lowers her voice conspiratorially, though still loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. Seriously, sis, whenever you need a lift, just let me know. Your poor little Accord must be ready for the junkyard by now, right? My Honda Accord. The car I bought with money saved from 3 years of tutoring undergrads. The car that got me through countless late nights driving home from the lab that never once failed me, even on icy Nashville roads. The car that's fully paid off, unlike I suspect that $60,000 SUV in the driveway. My car runs fine, Maya. I say, my voice tighter than I intend. Oh, I know, she says, waving a dismissive hand. But still, treat yourself sometimes, you know. She drifts away, pulled toward another group, eager to admire her keys, leaving me standing there holding a plastic piggy bank and the familiar ache of being fundamentally misunderstood. They see my careful budgeting not as responsible, but as proof of my lack of success. They see Maya's extravagance as earned her potential limitless, while mine is admirable, just admirable. I get back to my apartment later that night, the plastic piggy bank clutched in my hand. It feels absurdly light. I sit at my small kitchen table and pry open the stopper. The two $10 bills fall out, looking insignificant under the harsh kitchen light. Gregory's voice echoes in my head, for your future. $20? While Maya got a $60,000 SUV. The humiliation washes over me again, cold and sharp. Why didn't I say something? Why didn't I throw it back in his face? Why do I always just take it? It's not weakness, not really. Or maybe it is, but it's a weakness forged over years of trying to survive in their world. You learn growing up like this that rocking the boat doesn't get you anywhere. It just gets you wet. You learn to make yourself small agreeable. You learn that your needs come second or third or not at all. It becomes a habit this compliant. It feels safer to swallow the hurt than to risk the explosion that comes with speaking up. You tell yourself it's not that bad, that you're being too sensitive, that maybe they're right. You build these invisible chains around yourself, link by link. Each small compromise, each swallowed retort, each forced smile. You tell yourself it's the price of peace, the cost of belonging, even if you only belong on the fringes. It's a prison without bars, this need for approval from people who are incapable of giving it freely, and escaping. That feels like tearing off your own skin. It feels impossible, until it doesn't. I push the piggy bank away, the plastic smooth and cheap under my finger. I can't sleep. I wander into my living room, looking out at the Nashville skyline, the lights blurry through unshed tears. Around midnight, my phone rings. It's Patricia. I ignore it. Then Gregory calls. I ignore that too. They'll want to smooth things over, pretend it wasn't that bad, maybe offer some token gesture that costs them nothing. I can't do it tonight. Around 2 a.m., I go to get a glass of water and hear voices from the living room. My parents must have let themselves in with the spare key they insisted on having. I pause in the hallway, hidden by the shadows. She seemed upset, Patricia is saying. Of course she's upset. Gregory replies, his voice low but sharp. She's always upset about something. We give Maya one nice thing, and Clara acts like it's the end of the world. She needs to understand her place. Still, Patricia sighed. Maybe the piggy bank was a bit much. She needs to be realistic about her finances. Gregory snaps back. Maya needs the SUV for her image for client. Clara works in a lab. Nobody cares what she drives. Besides, Maya brings home the real money. Clara's just stable. We need to focus our resources where they matter most. Her place, stable. Resources where they matter most. The words hit me colder and harder than the piggy bank. It's not just about favoritism. It's a calculated decision about my perceived worth, my utility. That's it. The final link in those invisible chains just shattered. Quietly, I back away, retreating to my bedroom. My hands are steady now. The decision is made not in anger, but in cold, hard certainty. I pull out my suitcase and pack methodically. Research notes, essential papers, clothes. I actually wear the sheet music for my cello. I leave behind the bridesmaid dress from Maya's friend's wedding, the expensive scarf Patricia gave me last Christmas that wasn't my style. I leave behind the illusion that I belong here. At 3:30 a.m., I walk through the silent apartment. On the kitchen counter next to their spare key, which I place deliberately beside it, I leave the piggy bank. The $20 are tucked back inside. A final, silent statement. I lock the door behind me, the click echoing in the pre-dawn quiet. My Honda Accord starts reliably, as always. As I pull out of the parking lot, I don't look back. Nashville's lights recede in my rearview mirror. I point the car south toward Atlanta, toward Tatum, toward a future I'll build myself far away from their crushing expectations and calculated dismissal. The road is dark, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of light ahead. The drive to Atlanta felt like shedding a heavy coat I didn't know I was wearing. Tatum met me at her apartment door with open arms and no questions, just a warm hug and a key to her spare room. Stay as long as you need, she'd said, and for the first time in days, I could actually breathe. The guest room looked out over Piedmont Park Green and sprawling a world away from the manicured lawns and judgmental eyes of my Nashville neighborhood. Finding work was surprisingly fast. My resume, filled with research projects and publications my family had barely glanced at, spoke for itself here. I interviewed at a prestigious research institute connected with Emory, and within a week, I had an offer. A real offer with a salary that reflected my qualifications, working on a project studying genomic sequencing for rare diseases. Dr. Ramirez, my new supervisor, actually read my thesis, asked detailed questions, treated me like a colleague, not a curiosity. Tatum helped me find my own place after a month, a small one-bedroom near Decatur, with enough space for my cello in the living room corner. The first night I unpacked it, Rosine the bow, and drew it across the string. The deep, resonant sound filled the quiet apartment. It wasn't the hesitant, almost apologetic playing I used to do back home, worried about disturbing Gregory or interrupting whatever Maya was doing. This was just for me. Sound-filling space, that was mine. Atlanta felt different. People smiled on the street. Colleagues invited me for coffee, genuinely interested in my research, not just making polite conversation before pivoting back to themselves. I started exploring the city on weekends, discovering little bookstores, walking the Beltline, finding farmers markets. Slowly, cautiously, I started to feel like I belonged somewhere. Then I met Malachi. It was at a gallery opening Tatum dragged me to. He was an architect, quiet like me, with eyes that seemed to notice everything. We talked for an hour about building design and structural integrity, about how spaces shape our lives. There was no pretense, no awkwardness, just an easy connection. He asked for my number, and I gave it to him without hesitation. Our first date was coffee. Our second, a walk through Oakland Cemetery, talking about history and life and everything in between. He didn't care about my family background or my salary. He cared about my thoughts on viral mutation pattern, my passion for the cello, the way my eyes lit up when I talked talked about my research. It hit me one evening, sitting on my tiny balcony watching the sunset paint the Atlanta sky pink and orange, how different this felt. Here, I wasn't Maya's sister or Gregory's less successful daughter. I was just Clara, a researcher, a cellist, someone whose work was valued, whose thoughts were interesting, whose presence wasn't conditional on fitting into someone else's narrative. The constant background noise of comparison and judgment that had hummed beneath my life in Nashville was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence I didn't know I possessed. I was finding solid ground, and it felt like home. Months blurred into a rhythm that felt blessedly normal. Work at the Institute was challenging and fulfilling. My project was showing promising results, and Dr. Ramirez hinted at presenting our findings at a major conference next spring. Malachi and I fell into an easy routine. Dinners at my place, exploring Atlanta's neighborhoods on weekends, quiet evenings where we'd read side by side or he'd sketch while I practiced cello. He respected my need for space, my sometimes guarded nature, never pushing for details about the family I rarely mentioned. The calls from Nashville hadn't stopped entirely, but they'd lessened in frequency. Patricia usually called midweek, her tone overly bright, inquiring vaguely about my well-being before inevitably mentioning some unexpected expense. A leaky roof, a sudden car repair, followed by a hesitant, "We were just wondering if you might be able to help out a little this month." I learned to deflect politely but firmly. "I'm sorry, Mom, things are tight right now," became my standard reply, followed by a quick change of subject. Gregory occasionally texted usually curt demands for a callback, which I ignored. Maya's Instagram remained a curated feed of perfection. Lavish brunches, weekend getaways, designer outfits, always tagged with "Kaish, bless it." It felt like watching a show about people I used to know. One Saturday afternoon, I was sorting through old files preparing my tax document. I needed a statement from an old joint savings account Gregory had set up for Maya and me years ago, supposedly for college expenses. I'd barely touched it, using scholarships and loans instead, but Maya had apparently dipped into it frequently. I'd requested the statements online weeks ago, meaning to close the account fully, and finally sat down to review them. It was just odd. Numbers usually made sense to me. My research involved complex data sets, spotting anomalies, tracing patterns. As I scrolled through years of statements, my analytical brain kicked in, noticing things I hadn't paid attention to before. Large withdrawals coinciding with Maya's European trip. Transfers labeled educational expenses that far exceeded what her state school tuition should have been. Then, a series of transactions I didn't recognize at all. Investments in small speculative ventures, some showing significant losses, all drawn from this supposedly shared account. I cross-referenced dates with emails with Maya's social media posts from those years. The expensive camera she got for her photography hobby, purchased the same week a large sum was withdrawn. The down payment assistance for her first condo, another significant transfer just days before. And those risky investments, they seemed to benefit Gregory's business associates, not us. It wasn't just that they'd spent the money, it was how they'd spent it, disproportionately on Maya, while claiming funds were tight when I'd needed help. And worse, Gregory seemed to have used this joint account almost like a personal slush fund, diverting money meant for our futures into questionable ventures. It wasn't just emotional neglect. It felt like a deliberate financial sidelining. The scholarship I'd worked so hard for wasn't just a point of pride. It had been a necessity created in part by their choices. The $20 piggy bank wasn't just an insult. It was a symbol of how little they'd ever truly invested in my future compared to Maya. The hurt I felt was different this time, sharper, colder. This wasn't about feelings being dismissed. This was about opportunities potentially lost, about a trust fundamentally broken. The last vestiges of guilt about leaving, about needing space, evaporated. I saved copies of every statement, every transaction, organizing them meticulously, just like research data. Not for revenge, not yet anyway, but for clarity, for proof, for the quiet, steady certainty that walking away hadn't just been necessary, it had been long overdue. Thanksgiving. The word itself felt loaded as I drove north from Atlanta. Gregory had called, his voice surprisingly subdued, mentioning Patricia wasn't feeling well, and it might be nice if I came home for the holiday. It felt like a trap, but also though, an opportunity. Malachi had offered to come, a solid, supportive presence, but I knew I needed to do this alone. Walking into my parents' Nashville house felt different this time. Maybe because I felt different. I wore a simple but well-tailored dress, carried a sleek leather briefcase containing not just work papers, but the meticulously organized financial document. Patricia greeted me at the door with a hug that felt slightly less brittle than usual. Gregory offered a stiff nod. Maya was there, her usual vibrant self, but there was a flicker of something uncertain in her eyes when she saw me. Dinner was tense. The usual small talk felt strained. Patricia kept asking about my work questions that were slightly more specific than usual, though still tinged with a lack of real understanding. Gregory mostly picked at his food. Maya chattered about her latest sales figures, but the usual bragging felt forced. After the main course, as Patricia cleared plates, Gregory cleared his throat. "Clara," he began, "your mother mentioned you, seemed hesitant about helping out financially these days. Here it comes. We understand you have your own life now," he continued. "But family helps family, and things have been a bit tight." I asked, keeping my voice even. "Is that why you needed those small loans over the past few months? Or was that related to the investments you made using the joint college fund account?" The clatter of silverware stopped. Patricia froze halfway to the kitchen. Maya stared at Gregory, then at me. Gregory's face hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I opened my briefcase, pulling out the folder of bank statements. "I reviewed the records for the account you set up for Maya and me, the one supposedly for our education." I laid out the first statement. Funny how Maya's educational expenses included funding her trip to Europe, her condo down payment, that expensive camera, while my actual tuition costs resulted in $67,000 of student loan. "That money was for both of you," Patricia whispered, sinking into a chair. "Was it? Or was it primarily used to fund Maya's lifestyle while I was told to be sensible and realistic?" I pulled out another set of papers. "And these investments, Dad, the ones drawn from the same account benefiting your business associates showing significant losses, was that also for our education?" Gregory slammed his hand on the table. "How dare you dig into private family matters? Matters that directly impacted my financial opportunity, matters involving funds supposedly set aside for my future." I met his furious gaze without flinching. "You didn't just favor Maya emotionally, you favored her financially significantly, possibly even improperly, using funds that should have been shared, or at least accounted for." Maya looked stunned. "Dad, what is she talking about? She's twisting things." Gregory snapped, but his eyes darted away. I reached back into my briefcase and pulled out a check. "You paid my first year of tuition at Vanderbilt, $12,350 4 years ago." I slid the check across the table towards him. "Here is $25,000. That's the original amount adjusted generously for inflation and opportunity costs." He stared at the check as if it were contaminated. "What is this?" "This," I said, standing up and closing my briefcase, the click sounding loud in the tense silence, "is me settling the only financial investment you ever truly made in me. Consider us even." I picked up my briefcase. "I won't be staying for dessert." I walked towards the door, leaving them sitting in stunned silence around the Thanksgiving table. Gregory's face a mask of fury and shock. Patricia crying, Maya looking utterly bewildered. The leverage was gone, the obligation severed, the calculation finally complete. The check sat starkly on the Thanksgiving table as I walked out, leaving behind their shock and sputtering denial. Nashville felt like a foreign city in my rearview mirror. Back in Atlanta, life bloomed. Malachi's steady presence grounded me. My research soared, leading to a major grant and recognition I'd never sought from family. News of Gregory's forced retirement and Maya's struggles trickled down, but felt distant, like echoes from another life. Walking away from family, even a toxic one, is a kind of grief for what should have been. But choosing your own peace isn't betrayal, it's survival. True belonging isn't automatic with blood, it's found where you are seen and respected. Sometimes finding yourself means leaving behind those who refuse to see you. I poured the energy I once wasted seeking their approval into mentoring a young woman entering STEM, planting seeds for a future brighter than my past. Sitting on my balcony months later, the Nashville noise replaced by Atlanta's quiet hum, peace, settled deep. The reckoning wasn't about winning against them, it was about reclaiming myself. Free from their expectations, defined by my own choices, I was finally home.